Hello, my name is Logan Reynolds and welcome back to Pancake Grip and Electric on YouTube. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the lighting on the feature film, The Way We Speak. And more specifically, I'm going to be looking at this Oner from the opening scene. Simon, played by Patrick Fabian, enters the auditorium, walks through the crowd, enters backstage and exits through a door in the hallway. One big challenge that pertained to this auditorium was how to achieve our base lighting for the space. Approximately a third of our movie was filmed in this location. However, unfortunately, we had to load in and load out every weekend because the space was used for class during the week. This meant we couldn't leave gear behind as it had to be functional for the school. There was a section of the auditorium up by the catwalk that was lit with par cans, and that was our starting point, and that was just kind of came with the venue. And so there's all these hard point sources shining down on the audience. But what we wanted was a big soft overhead source. And I should also point out, this was not a big budget show, there weren't any rigging crews, and we had one pre-light day to get this location to a place where we liked it. So the idea on the pre-light day was to grab a 20 by 20 quarter grid and drape it underneath the catwalk. So it had like a big belly, and that softened those par cans. And it took a total of 4 lines getting dropped down, tied to all 4 corners, and then they all had to come up, back up at the same time because the catwalk was about 40 feet off the ground. It worked really well. We ended up re-aiming a couple of those par cans and even adding a couple to kind of give us an even spread across our softbox. After that, we took 2 12 by 12 solids, and using the same rope method, we just pulled those up from on the back side of the belly, and that kind of acted as a teaser to keep some soft light off of the back wall of the auditorium. And this was actually something that the venue was okay with us leaving up for the month of production because it was all off the ground and it didn't interfere with their classes. But this video is specifically about lighting this Oner. So let's watch it all the way through. And as you're watching it, keep in mind that the goal was to create pockets of light. So light, shadow. As Patrick Fabian is walking through the scene, that's kind of our goal, is to have these little pockets of light that he is traveling through. So keep that in mind as you watch it, and here it is.
Our beautiful host city of Portland for providing truly top-notch venues across the board. As we begin this year's annual event featuring thought leaders from around the globe, what do you say, everyone, huh? Let's fortify? All right. Here's one of Rampart's newer friends who will offer this year's opening remarks in just a few moments. Simon is enjoying a meteoric rise as an essayist and will square off against Rampart staple George Rossi for a truly high-minded event that some of you flew in for, I happen to know. Okay, during the pitch, be sure to download the Rampart app if you haven't already, where you can search events, secure tickets, and learn more about our roster of head-turning speakers. And of course, each and every debate, panel, and workshop will live on and be streamed on demand after they've been simulcast live in over 20 languages. Okay.
Let's walk through this. I'm going to stop along the way and discuss every step of what's going on. First thing you'll notice, as the door opens, you'll see this practical on the left. That is just there, that's raw, I didn't do anything to that. We looked at a couple different ways to control it, but ultimately decided it wasn't blown out, we're just leaving that. Next, as he walks through, you'll start seeing these recessed fixtures in the ceiling. And those were actually bulbs that got replaced with aperture B7Cs, and that creates a couple pockets as he walks through them. And those are things I was able to control. At the top of the stairway, he stops, he takes a pause, and he looks around. That is actually, we didn't have anything there. There wasn't really space to put anything because we were seeing it as we traveled in with him. So that is literally just him being lit by that 20 by quarter grid that is kind of blanketing our whole auditorium. Okay, so now he's on the move, and as he's walking down the aisle, he does turn around to address the crowd. And on his way down, you can see he walks into a little pocket of light here. That is actually a tungsten Lico. That is one of ours, something that was, put way back in the crowd, and that is picking him up right here, giving him a little extra illumination as he's kind of having this special moment where he turns and waves to the crowd. He leaves the light of that Lico and goes into a long, shadowy spot, and you'll notice the exit sign kind of pops up. It's, we looked at covering that. Ultimately, we decided to leave it. It gives a little bit of light to an otherwise really dark corner of the scene. It was totally practical, so we felt that it belonged there and didn't feel out of place by, having this green exit sign there. As the door opens, you'll see this cool light that kind of is lighting up this short, 4 or 5 step walkway. And that was actually a light mat 4 that was on a menace arm. And the base of that was just left of camera, and it was skirted off and just kind of created this little pocket of light on the stair. Simon takes a little look into the backstage. That is actually just entirely lit by the practicals that they had backstage. There was a lot of RGB fixtures that existed back there, and we use those quite often for some of the backstage scenes. This moment in the blocking gave the camera a chance to get in front of Patrick Fabian. So we're now leading him down the hallway as opposed to following him like we had been in the previous section of the shot. So this hallway had some unique challenges. First, as we're walking through, fluorescent fixture. So we wanted to control that. We pulled the fluorescent bulbs out of that, and I stuck a couple Titan tubes with magnet clips up in there. Then we go through a long section of black in the hallway, and this is actually where some of the magic happened. So there were park hands down this hallway, and for whatever reason, the venue could not turn them off. They should have been able to turn them off. They should have been on a switch, but something to do with, I don't know, the electronics or the programming. These lights were just on, all these park hands down this hallway. So anyone that wasn't on scene, we just black wrapped or put a floppy up, but there was this one down the middle of the hallway, right in our shot, that we needed it off, couldn't turn it off. The solution was simple, and this is the only time I've ever used this stuff, but white Cine foil. No one talks about this stuff. It's kind of impractical for a lot of use cases, but it does exist. And sometimes you just need to know what's available to you so that when you're in a weird situation like this, you can pull this ace out of your bag of tricks and solve the problem. You'd never know on camera that this was a little grip magic creating this dark spot in the hallway. Lastly, at this end of the hallway, there was one more tube, a Titan tube on a 2x4 spreader. We kept it up as high to the ceiling as possible so that we could keep that out of the shot. Then after that, they turned the corner. This happened to be a vortex bouncing into an ultra bounce floppy, and that was creating this nice soft light for them to walk into. This was a super fun and challenging setup. I definitely learned a lot along the way. This wasn't my first time lighting for Steadicam, but this was probably one of the more bigger, kind of grander Steadicam setups that I've lit for. My takeaway, my advice to anyone going into this situation where you're lighting for a Steadicam is you're either hiding the lights or you're just blatantly having them in the shot, but you're doing it in a way that does not draw attention to it. Like having a fluorescent fixture in the shot, lamps, stuff like that. That's it for this one. I hope you found this valuable. Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciate this content, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I truly appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on set.